2 nominations for Male Vocalist of the Year, as we mentioned earlier, by the Canadian Gospel Music Association of Canada. 2004 Religious Recording of the Year award for the CD Simple. That CD was also Inspirational Album of the Year nominee. You're featured on the gold-selling video Canadian Homecoming from Bill Gaither. That's been a hot one. 2005 Canadian Recording of the Year for your trio Beyond the Veil. Shall I keep going? We'll be here for a while.
I think we're done.
You toured with Tony Campolo leading worship.
I did.
When he was up in Canada. Associated with so many artists, both as performer and likened to some pretty big names.
You know what? It still feels very surreal, and I still feel like a kid in a candy store many times. Getting to sing with Bill Gaither was probably the pinnacle for me.
Really?
Because I was 6 years old when I was sitting in Massey Hall. I can tell you the seat I was in, the clothes I was wearing, and I leaned over to my dad. I said, one day I'm going to sing with him. And to be able to get up on stage and to be part of that is just, I felt like God every once in a while just throws me a little bit of candy and says, here, have some fun. And
well, I want to personally thank you for Miracle Man. Highlight of Easter for us. A wonderful production. I'm sure Kennedy Road Tabernacle was thrilled. Is that your church?
No, it's not.
You were just enlisted to
Yeah.
be Jesus. I want to show you some of the images from just a wonderful... I can't remember being... witnessing so many lengthy songs and numbers.
And that was Mary Magdalene.
In,
right at the
in
time.
her early stages.
That was right at the transformation where she changes, and that was during the Garden of Gethsemane. And yeah, that was probably one of the most powerful things I've ever been a part of in the Last Supper.
Are people still treating you oddly?
Not now, but they did, especially during the play. And it was an experience unlike anything I've ever been a part of. I mean, you're not often called upon to play our Savior. Mm-hmm. And it felt like such a daunting task. I thought, this is crazy. I can't play Jesus. And I don't think I've ever felt more alive getting on stage and saying the words that I've read in the Bible and just being able to, I really prayed, I said, God, help me to feel something of what you felt during this. It was quite amazing.
And
I really
you told me
felt
that the calling of the disciples was the most meaningful for you.
In listening to the music, many times in my car, I would just break down crying. It was so powerful to me.
Now, you really are something of a miracle man. Birth is a big theme here today. You almost didn't make it into this world.
No, I didn't almost make it, and I sure didn't make it into the world the way the doctors thought I would make it into this world. My mom was very close to death, and the story gets scattered at times, but from what I understand, they lost my mom on the operating table, and they had to get her back. Or my dad left the hospital 40 years ago when I was born, or 39 and a half, thinking that he wasn't going to have a wife to carry on with the rest of his raising of his children. So there was very difficult circumstances, and the doctors found something. On the spur of the moment, they did something they don't normally do. They don't do a lot of ultrasounds and checking back that far. And they found something with the way I was sitting, with what was happening in my mom, that would have caused me great distress. And there was many other circumstances that thought I would be born with brain damage, quite extensive. Some of that has probably transpired.
Not at
but
all.
There was a lot of circumstances surrounding. I should not have been somewhat normal. My mom should not have been around. The doctors told my mom, you don't have another kid, you're not going to make it through. My leg was caught in a lawnmower when I was 6 years old, and they said I'd never walk again. There's been a lot of circumstances where I know that Christ had my hand through the whole thing.
I want to mention your dad. You're the youngest of 8 children, raised in Hamilton. You said it's hard to look at Chuck and take him seriously, because I don't know if he babysat you, but you...
Well, he picked on me more with my brothers, so yeah, he felt like another older brother.
But your dad was the first treasurer back in the, well, we're celebrating 45 years as Crossroads today.
He was involved back in the beginning with David Maines, and so there's quite a heritage here, and David and Norma Jean have always been so kind to me and have treated me like I'm one of their kids, and so it's wonderful.
Well, we are celebrating with you, Kevin, because your new CD, True, isn't just a new CD. It represents a dream fulfilled in your life, and I think any aspiring artist is going to be in awe of what you've accomplished here. What's opened up for you?
Well, About a year ago, I really believed that I was supposed to start my own record label, and starting, one of the things that being around Bill Gaither for a while, you start to learn the business side of things a little bit better, and he's the genius at understanding what it means to make a living doing this, and he's done it better than most. And so under his tutelage and some of the people there, I started to set up my own record label. And in the midst of doing this, I had a call from a little boutique label called Icon Records. And Icon Records, they actually have Michelle Wright, the country star, and a few other country artists. They've never gotten into the gospel market. And they called me and they said, we'd like to distribute your stuff because we distribute through Universal. And I honestly thought it was a prank phone call because you just don't get those opportunities handed to you. But they had saw me sing with the Gaithers, and this opportunity evolved, and now through my record company we have distribution. So when True hits the market later this year,
in Walmart and Kmart and Zellers,
the Zellers and the HMV and the Best Buys, and all the Christian bookstores, obviously too. So it's a huge opportunity, and I just really felt that that was where my career wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there. I mean, how do I take my independent stuff? I mean, I don't have the money to do all the things. The networking and the distribution is huge.
And you didn't do it.
No, I had nothing to do with it.
God just did this. Now, to this point, you sound like Golden Boy. We have 4 minutes, and you have a story that people need to hear because they're in the waiting room. Maybe it has nothing to do with music, but they're in a tough place. And honestly, I read this story, and I showed it to my husband. I said, Murphy's Law. This just is too unbelievable.
Well, back a few years ago in 2002, I went on vacation and I met this guy that was a preacher from the school I used to be at in Florida. And to make a very long story short, he called me while I'm still on vacation, and he said, I want you to move to Florida. I want you to take over our worship at the school. There's 1,500 students. We want you to travel around the country. We want you to run the worship, teach them what it means to be on the road and to worship, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let me think about that.
For 2 seconds.
For 2 seconds. Everything I wanted to do, the plan he gave to my wife so that she could finish her schooling, the housing, the amount that they offered me for salary, everything fit perfectly. So in a matter of a week, I flew to Florida, accepted the job, quit my other job, sold my house, and packed up and moved. And by the time I got to the border, all the paperwork we thought we needed was not what we had. And we got there and they said it's going to be another 90 days at least. And the school needed somebody immediately, and so they canceled the job offer. And I called down to Dr. Mark Rutland, who leads Southeastern University, and it is an amazing place. And I knew the day I got off the phone with him, I went, he had nothing to do with this. This was God. And so the whole way home, after I finished crying and figuring out what I was going to do, I said, God, you started this. There's been a lot of mistakes and a lot of things I've done in my life where I look back and I go, you blew it, Kevin. This time I looked at God and I said, with all confidence, I said, I had nothing to do with this. You started this, you finish it. And for a few months I preached. I'd never preached before in my life. I started preaching, I started singing everywhere I could. And my wife and I had this confidence that God was involved. And I'll never forget it. December, I think it was the 20th. You have to look at my notes. I think it was the 20th.
You talk.
December 20th. I remember sitting in my living room.
December 20th, 2002.
There you go. And I remember sitting in my living room, crying out to God, just thinking, God, what on earth am I going to do? And he said, I didn't give you this dream to torment you. I gave it to you so that you could fulfill it. Wow. And I knew he was calling me into what I'm doing today. And it's, I wouldn't change it for anything.
In fact, you told me before the program that you would go back to this crucible in a heartbeat. Why? Why?
Because in the good times, we don't need them. And I'm sick of feeling so many times like, I got it together. Yeah, things are happening, things are good. I forget to bring God along with me sometimes. And I crave going back to the times where I woke up every morning going, I have no idea what I'm going to do today. Help me. And I dug into the Word like I never done. I dug into prayer. I just cared. And I'd love to get back to that point. So every day I go back and go, don't let me take that, go back to those positions. Yes. But help me get back to where I need you so desperately. I crave for that. That's what we want.
Kevin, it's a joy to have you here today. I have to let you go. You head over there. I want you to see the album cover. The CD's coming out very soon. You want to watch for True.